welcome back to another episode of The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, the show where I, the curator, discuss my personal favorite show of all time, personal favorite franchise of all time, Doctor Who. And we got another exciting episode where we talk about planets. This time, it's the modern series planets. Last week we talked about the classic era series planets, and oh boy, there was a lot to cover with mainly two of them. This week, I am a little bit better on that because even though even though the modern series have some incredible looking planets, there ain't much to talk about. So we're actually able to do 6 planets this time instead of 4, and there will be a little less detailed than last time. But of course, I cannot do this alone. I needed a special guest tonight, a very, very special guest. So, and also a special guest who specializes in planets, someone who knows more about planets and their economies than I will ever know in my entire life. So, ladies and gentlemen, multi-sex, undecided or robot, please help me welcome the marvelous Marie Wilson back to the show.
Hey,
How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you back here. I'm so glad that last time you were here didn't throw you off from wanting to know more about some Doctor Who stuff.
Nope.
Okay, so we're going to start today, as per usual, with the birthday section for the week of from the 6th of September all the way to the 12th, which is supposedly when this episode is supposed to drop, unless our resident soda malfunctions again. So we'll see how that's going to turn out. But on the 7th of September, starting us off, we have, let me see if I can get this name right, Thomas Patrick McKenna. I believe that's the name of this person. He was the captain, a pseudo bad guy in a 1980s episode, a one-off side villain, but the name of the episode was The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, which, is the name of this show. So I decided to highlight him on that particular, on this particular show. Also on the 7th, we have Toby Jones, who appeared as the Dream Lord in the Matt Smith episode Amy's Choice, as well as playing another villainous role in one of the Dark Eyes series on Big Finish. And of course, I mean, everyone loves Dobby, right? From the Harry Potters, right? I like Dobby. He voiced Dobby in those movies. On September 8th, we have Lewis Mahoney. Obviously, seen in this picture, most Doctor Who fans might be able to recognize him from the masterful episode Blink, the episode that introduced the Whipping Angels. But he also had sort of minor roles in Frontier in Space and Planet of Evil back in the 70s. So, really pretty big episodes there. On September 9th, we have Julia Sawala. I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. She played the character Emma, a companion of Rowan Atkinson's Doctor in the spoof parody The Curse of Fatal Death, which was kind of technically Stephen Moffat's first attempt at a Doctor Who episode. So pretty significant here. Also, speaking of The Curse of Fatal Death, someone who played one of the Doctors in that parody spoof episode, Hugh Grant. And I believe he was also offered the role of the 10th Doctor. Before that, he ended up turning it down and went for David Tennant, I think. He was offered one of the Doctors, can't really remember which one. Next, also on September 9th, we have our first proper main series companion, Janet Fielding, who played the character of Tegan Jovanka back in the 80s. And finally, rounding up our list, this is a pretty interesting one. On September 10th, We have, hold on, what's this guy's name? I don't want to mispronounce it. Stuart Milligan. As seen in this picture, he played President Richard Nixon in The Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon. He also has several different other credits from Big Finish, mainly playing minor roles in Big Finish Audio Adventures. He played a character in the animated episode Dreamland, but he also has a villainous recurring role that he has appeared in several Doctor Who Big Finish episodes, including the spin-off show Jenny the Doctor's Daughter, and he's playing the character of Garandel, one of my personal favorite characters from all of Doctor Who. That's a character that needs to be on the main show. It's such a lovely character. He's a frogman con artist. That's just, he's really funny. I'll tell you all about him after the show. So
Cool.
the wonderful list of people we had today. Thank you all. We quite literally could not do this without you. So once again, I spent all of my time on breaks from work writing notes for today's episode, and now it's time to see how well I can read my own stuff, because I'm a very, very messy reader. And yes, I am reading out loud from a notebook because I tried to do several episodes where I read off the screen, but it's just so far away from me. It was awkward. Let's just put it that way. So first,
I always print out my stuff for Afra's artifacts.
but do you have them in a place where you can read them without it looking too awkward? Because
well, that's true. I don't know. I kind of like look up and sort of look down. I don't know. Maybe it is kind of awkward.
yeah, I mean, doing this show, I finally realized why so many other YouTubers just don't have themselves on screen while they're reading their own script. I never understood that until I had to do stuff for this show. And I really just, my hat goes, if I was wearing a hat, my hat goes off to all those people who can read their own script on camera without it looking too much like they're reading from a teleprompter. Good job. You deserve your thousands and millions of subscribers. So, first episode we'll be talking today, one of my personal favorites, New Earth.
Ooh.
Yeah, and actually, now that I realize that, fun fact, my first ever episode of Doctor Who that I ever watched. Both the name of the episode is called New Earth, and the name of the planet is New Earth. So let me just read up some stats. Get ready for this. There are a lot of native species to this planet, so don't get overwhelmed. So, planet, New Earth, galaxy, location, galaxy M87. Natives, this is the part that gets really tricky. New humans, cat kind, tree kind, dog kind, mice kind, lion kind, bird kind, and flamingos. Hippopotamus guards. And now on to the ones that I don't have images for. We have sky penguins and solar bears, scorpion kind, lizard kind, spider kind, sparrow form, heron folk, dolphin children, owl woman, singular, not plural, regular mice, not mice people, and dromedans. As I mentioned, first seen in the episode New Earth, and its main city that we see mostly on the show, New York. So a little bit of history and background on this planet. So in the year 5.5/Apple/26, also known as the year 5 billion, Earth's sun, also known as Sol, expanded and became a red giant. I'm pretty sure I don't have to tell you this. You probably know that better than me. It's mostly based on real-world predictions and projections, the sun expanding and blossoming into a red giant.
Yeah.
And obviously, as a result of that, planet Earth got completely burned up,
Whew.
as seen in this wonderful big. Just seeing that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this is
Those
2005,
graphics are actually pretty great.
and this is 2005. This is
Wow.
like the second ever episode of the new series. This is 2005 effects. And just even if the graphics weren't up to stuff, just the image of seeing planet Earth burn up like that, it does something to you. Even though I've seen this a billion times already, it just really does something to me on the inside. So planet Earth was burned in the process. Following this, this sparked a huge wave of nostalgia around the surviving post-humans, also known as the Arcadians, causing them to terraform 28,000 planets into Earth-like worlds, including Refusius, Frontius, and Terra Primagenia. Primagenia, sorry. Terra Primagenia. Like I said, I'm terrible at reading my own stuff. Just to name a few. Eventually, settling on a planet in the M87 galaxy as the definitive new Earth call goes out, all the planets move in. In the year 5,012,000,012, a woman named Helen Clay started the Testimony Foundation. Now, some background about the Testimony Foundation. Basically, what it does is it sends agents from the Testimony Foundation back in time to people who are very, very near their own death, collects them for a few minutes, and just downloads all of their collective memories onto this big, massive collection of memories to store them for posterity, so that no one is left unremembered in a way.
Huh.
So in a way that's sort of remember every single one who's ever lived. And it's a very beautiful thing. The very last thing that Stephen Moffat has added to the show in Critical this final episode. In the year 5,023,000,000, this is where things get controversial. Not real world terms, it's just in universe stuff. So in the year 5,023,000,000, damn it! Now I wish I downloaded the. I saw the perfect picture and I decided not to add it to this lineup. Whatever. Anyway, so in around that time, the Sisters of Plenitude were running a hospital out on the outskirts of the city of New York, which, as you can see, they are cats. They're mainly cat kind. Cat nurse nuns, as they're commonly referred to, were running a bit of a conspiracy in the underlevels of a hospital, breeding living humans and then infecting them with every single disease in the galaxy.
Oh my
As,
gosh.
basically using them as human petri dishes to concoct the cure for every single disease imaginable. And they were running a pretty successful operation until eventually the 10th Doctor, with some involuntary help from the Lady Cassandra O'Brien, Delta 17, freed all the new humans, and then the Doctor used the sisters' cures and solutions on the new humans to cure every single one of them, creating a brand new species known as new humans. All the Sisters of Plenitude were arrested and trialed for their actions in the underlevels of the hospital, and all the new humans were registered as new creatures, given new names, and integrated into the New Earth society. One specific sister of from that order of the Sisters of Plenitude, Novice Haim, was given a chance to was given penance for her sins and became the head nurse of the immortal entity known as the Face of Bo. More on him later. So around 6 years later, the Bliss virus broke out all over the city. So basically, by around that time, humanity has evolved into the point where they can actually produce moods and feelings as drugs, such as anger, happiness, forget, rage, joy. all that kind of stuff. They basically produce them in the form of little stickers that you put on your neck, and then immediately they would take effect. You can become happy or angry if you want to. You can immediately forget something you want to forget, and they can even be used for honesty and stuff like that. One day, around that time, the new in around 5 billion and 29, a new drug was introduced known as Bliss, which was so addictive that everyone used it, and eventually it produced a mutated virus that evolved within the compound and completely wiped out the entire Senate of New York, causing them to start a global quarantine, sealing off the planet and sealing off all the people in the undercity, people that live beneath the city of New York, which created the massive gridlock, which lasted for about 24 years. Basically, people who lived in the undercity got into their cars and drove onto the motorway and basically just got stuck in a massive traffic jam, spending the length of the entire city for 2.5 decades. Essentially, it came to the point where people could spend 12 years going 5 miles in total. It got
Wow.
that bad, and it actually led to children of the motorway, as they were called. Literally, kids who were born inside their parents' cars, born on the motorway, because the cars just couldn't stop. They were stuck in a traffic jam. Like I said, this lasted for about 24 years. Around the year 5 billion and 53, the 10th Doctor came back to New Earth to visit, discover this whole ordeal, and discovered that the entire the bottom of the motorway was infested with macra that have regressed back into their more beastly appearances. Probably should have had an image for that. Never mind. But basically, he used his creative genius to find a way to open the barriers that divide the overcity and the undercity, releasing all the people trapped on the motorway to repopulate the city of New York. However, the being known as the Face of Bo gave his life to make that happen. Really sad and
Wow.
emotional moment there. And right next to him, dressed all in black, that was his nurse, Novice Haim, who, following this incident, became Senator Haim and tried to help rebuild the New Earth Society with her, and eventually she became vice president, then feline imperator of the New Earth Order. She had her little sidekick that I can't remember his name right now. I apologize. I should have had it in the notes. But basically, she sent him on various missions throughout the various cities of New Earth to try and make peace with all the other cities living on the planet. Because in the actual show itself, you're kind of led to believe that New York is the only city on the planet. But actually, if you get to some of the audio episodes on Big Finish, you realize that no, there are other colonies living out there. Just none of them really wanted anything to do with New York because the virus. They didn't want to get infected.
Mm.
So one such place is the New Forest, which is where the tree people live, the tree kind, and the termitons and the spider kind. Another city is called New Calem, which this is pretty interesting. New Calem is a floating city, and again, this is an audio episode, so no images for that one. But it's a floating city that floats above the ground, and about 2 miles above that is Nest City, which is where the bird kind live, and above that there are ice clouds, which is where the sky penguins and solar bears live. Literally, clouds made of ice that people can actually stand on and walk on, and there's an entire ecosystem of sentient beings living there. The final city on the
Wow.
planet that I want to bring up is obviously the city of New Cairo, which is primarily the base of operations of the cat kind. The cat kind, this is where they rule. All the cat kinds are kind of the rulers and leaders of the city, and the Dromedans, which is basically like humanoid camels. Really wish they had actually had artwork for that because that sounds incredible. But these humanoid camels, the Dromedans, were basically the slaves and servants of the cat kind, and the cat kind, including the Sisterhood of Planet, the Sisters of Planitude, were primarily led by the most exalted High Persian, as if cats weren't full of themselves enough already. So this is one of my favorite planets to visit in uh, Doctor Who. I wish we get to see more of that world. I wish they do another uh, box set of audio episodes because there's just so much potential in a world like this. I mean, it's Earth in
Yeah.
the future. Like all the animals that we know today have evolved into humanoid-like beings. And again, I wish there was artwork for this. I wish there was more TV episodes based there. Eventually, at some point, and it doesn't really say exactly when, but Vice President, uh, feline Imperator of the New Earth Order, Haim, reverted back into novice Haim for her final days in her funeral parlor. Hold on, maybe I have an image of that. Let me just check because I did use one. I just didn't upload it. But basically, she was at a why can't I say words today? This is frustrating. No, I guess I deleted the image. Yeah, funeral pyre, where they took these two gold coins and in her final moments placed them on her eyeballs to sort of simulate her going back into slumber. It's like I said, it's a lot of really interesting mythology
Yeah.
in New Earth, and with Russell T Davies coming back as showrunner for at least one more season, maybe we'll get to see more of that planet. But maybe I'm just setting myself up for disappointment. But yeah,
I think it sounds incredibly interesting. I would love to watch those episodes.
yeah, and there are only 2 episodes. The planet itself really only shows up in 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Very easy to watch. And like I said, it was the first one was my first episode of the show, and I instantly like clicked into the world. Like there's so
Yeah.
much interesting stuff, like the Duke of Manhattan. There's a Duke of Manhattan in this episode, and it's oh yeah, apple grass, just all over the planet. Hold on, right here, a field of
Oh.
apple grass. And like I said, a lot of really interesting stuff. There's even in the audio stuff, there's like a whole society based around elevators.
Uh,
Can't quite remember too much about that, but yeah, that's the beauty of Doctor Who is they can make an ecosystem out of almost anything. There's some audio episodes where there's like there's separate human tribes living in an abandoned airport, like
oh wow.
yeah, in the classic series, there's like basically an entire city based in a hotel that was closed off from the rest of the world, and just people living in there. And they live in secluded, isolated communities. Like I said, there's you can in Doctor Who you can make society out of anything.
Yeah. For real. Um I do have a question. Sorry, I'm looking something up because one of the things you said I thought was interesting. I mean, lots of what you said was interesting, but one thing um, that I could make a connection to is that you said the cat kind were from New Cairo.
They rule
And
in New Cairo.
yeah, and that reminds me of the Zygerians in the
Hmm.
Clone Wars because they were kind of that's like, I mean,
Little
it's not,
slavers. That's a pretty easy
yeah,
connection there.
and they seemed very Egyptian-esque as well with like their society, like the architecture and the clothing and stuff.
Yeah,
So,
And even on New Cairo, they built new pyramids. Now, a lot of this sort of has to do with the main storyline in those audio episodes. I'm not going to get into that right now because it kind of deals with an evil entity that's basically an ancient religion that based around light. And the light was at the very top of the pyramid they built on New Cairo. Again, not really something I want to get into on this episode. Otherwise, they would have written it in the notes.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to talk more about the world itself and how
Yeah.
they paint a really, really beautiful looking picture in those audio episodes.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Get a sense of the this is a living, breathing world because it's even stated multiple times that they chose this planet as New Earth because exact same size as the original Earth, same atmosphere, same orbit, same ecosystem, a lot of really the same things. So that's why it was the perfect candidate to be the new home for mankind. So anything else?
Oh, all the different all the different now sentient animal derived species, how did they come about? Do you know?
They don't necessarily say, but it's just
Okay.
billion years of evolution. Just like
Right.
humans evolved from ape-like creatures millions of years ago. Solar bears evolved from polar bears, and even in Nest City, it's very much made clear that the bird kind, there's different kinds of bird people. Like there's a blue jay, there's a parrot, there's
Oh wow.
cockadoo, all kinds of different variations in bird kind. Just like in real humans, we have Americans, British, Germans, Spanish, Greeks, that sort of thing. So it was more or less the same thing with the animal species in New Earth.
That's cool. And actually, the whole concept reminds me of I think it's young adult book trilogy, and I can't think of the name of it right now, but it is so good, and it's that same except for it's like people um that were of a certain class were able to get on these spaceships that took them to this new Earth, and they populated it because Earth was super polluted and bad and they couldn't live there anymore. Um and it except for in this particular series you have the humans and then there's natives. And so there's an interesting interaction between the people who were evolved on that planet to humans. So it's like they don't even really appear that different, but it's just typical, issues with that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
the different class
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah.
Kind of sounds like Snowpiercer in space a little bit. Space Piercer.
Space Piercer. Yeah, it's like I found it because there was you could get a free ebook of the first one, and I was like, this is so good.
So this is smart. They give you a free ebook of the first one, so you feel compelled to buy the other one.
Yeah, I paid for the second one and the third one.
Yeah, and that's how they get you. But
Yeah.
if you enjoy it, then what's the harm?
Oh yeah. For sure.
Okay. Ready to move on to the next step? The next one.
The last thing I want to say is that I mean, obviously there's a similarity between the society being below the city to Coruscant because you
Yeah,
have so many layers below like the normal level.
yeah. Like what I said earlier, the sort of class system based on elevators. It's like the higher level of the particular building you happen to live on, the more higher class you are versus how the lower you are. And even with the new humans, there was a lot of people didn't people really looked down on them because they were essentially born in a lab. They didn't transfer from the other Earth colonies.
Mm.
A lot of people didn't consider them to be real humans. In fact, the cat kind, the sisters, they still have these devices that could control those new humans. They can make them turn them into their puppets essentially, and they were even able to do that to like second and third generation people who were descendants of those humans.
Wow.
One of the main characters is a second generation new human uh, whose parents basically escaped this slaughterhouse and went to the motorway. So basically, they went from one prison to the next, and yeah, he's a child of the motorway. There's a lot of really poignant stuff in New Earth, and like I said, it's sad that I guess the audio episodes didn't really hit with a lot of people. I loved them, but I guess that's why 4 years and they still haven't made new ones. So, yeah, and even on the Wikipedia page, there's no synopsis for all four of them.
You should make it.
Yeah, maybe I should. My only problem is I'm a horrible storyteller, so that's why I haven't done that. But, yeah, it's disappointing. They have a lot of detail about other stuff pertaining to those episodes, but not the actual synopsis themselves. None of the cast lists are listed. It's just really frustrating.
Yeah.
Okay, planet number 2. And thankfully, like I said, this was the biggest one that we're going to be talking about today. A lot of these don't really have much going on, but they're still pretty interesting. That's why I decided to bring them up. And this next one is really going to strike a chord with a lot of Doctor Who fans because it's Trenzalore. This planet has a lot of lore. Trenzalore. Here's the stats screen. Now, something I noticed that I was actually able to do relatively different stats screens for almost every planet, which is pretty interesting. So, like I said, the planet Trenzalore, location unknown, natives humans, main locations Christmas, the Outlands, Devil's Elbows Canyon, sorry, the Goat Patch, Fafnir's Crest, the Choke, Glade of Everdale, sorry, the sun was in the way, and Preacher's Clamp. Most of these locations were seen in a novel, so that's why there's no actual images for them. But as for the planet itself, so Trenzalore is a level 2 human colony planet. A small colony of humans settled on the planet and founded a small village called Christmas. The villagers use boronite, which is an explosive that is 9 times stronger than dynamite, to reach underground springs of water for water supply underneath the ground. But eventually, after a time, they stopped using those boronites and they just shelved them and only used them several hundred years later to fight a war that we will talk about in just a minute. But yeah, the colonists based their village on an agrarian society, a society based on agriculture, as best they could, obviously, because they were so technologically advanced at that point that they couldn't quite replicate a proper agrarian society. Yeah, and they were snow farmers. Now, the novel actually does go into intricate detail explaining what snow farming is actually done. And one thing that I actually really appreciated about the novelizations of the original Star Wars trilogy, particularly A New Hope, is that in the New Hope novelization, they actually explain what moisture farmers do.
That's
I didn't read
awesome.
the book to know. Did you read the novelization, by the way?
I've read versions of it, but not the original.
Well, I have this book with all 3 of them in one. So basically, because I see people, Taco included, making these jokes of what purpose is there to farm moisture? What do you do? Why are you farming moisture? In the book, it's actually explained that they're not actually farming moisture. The moisture evaporators just absorb and collect and gather all the moisture from the air, in particular morning dew, which is then gathered and piled up into actual water that they then use to water the crops. Because they are farmers, they're growing crops using the moisture from the moisture evaporators. And here I go explaining Star Wars to someone who knows more about it than I. But yes, snow farming, basically the same. The atmosphere of the planet Trenzalore is really, really cold, and it snows there almost all the time. So a lot of people just harvest all the snow, plow it to build build new cities, and actually then melt down the snow into water to then use on crops. That's what snow farming does, and that's what the novel explains so greatly that that's something I actually remember because I listened to that novel twice. Because once again, the wiki page, nada.
Oh.
Okay, about 150 years after the colonization of Trenzalore, and this is where it really gets into the relevance to the story. The last of the cracks in the skin of the universe has appeared inside the bell tower at the center of town. The cracks of the skin of the universe are leftovers from a massive explosion that happened some time ago that began randomly appearing on walls all over the universe and all through time. And after the Doctor closed most of them in his debut season, in his final episode, the last one appeared inside the clock tower in Trenzalore. This is not the one, but this is the best image of the crack that I could find. The cracks are basically known as a gateway into another universe that shouldn't exist. And the crack, once it appeared inside the town of Christmas, it began broadcasting a signal to the rest of the universe that drew hundreds, if not thousands, of ships to the planet Trenzalore itself to investigate the message. By the way, this is the town of Christmas, by the way. Forgot to show it. This is
nice.
It started out as a small village and became a full town. There are other settlements with people who, for one reason or another, were banished from Christmas, but this is where the majority of humans lived on that world. Now, eventually it was discovered that the message being broadcast all over the universe was the first question. Do you know what the first question is?
No.
Then let's have our good friend Doria Maldovar explain.
On the fields of Trenzalore, at the fall of the 11th, when no living creature can speak falsely or fail to answer, a question will be asked. A question that must never, ever be answered.
Silence will fall when the question is asked.
Silence must fall would be a better translation.
So there was this prophecy about the oldest question in the universe, hidden in plain sight, that silence will fall when the question is asked. And there was this big religious order called the Silence, committed to stopping the Doctor from reaching Trenzalore and discovering the question. Big, massive 3-season storyline there, but like I said, it's the oldest question in the universe, hidden in plain sight, the first question ever asked. Can you guess what the question is?
What is life?
That's a very good assumption, but it's wrong. Do you want to know the actual question?
Yes.
Doctor Who? Doctor Who? Doctor Who?
That's cool.
Yep, that's the oldest question in the universe. It's literally in the title of the show.
Wow. That's really cool. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Stephen Moffat was a genius level writer. It was once the Doctor eventually reached the planet Trenzalore and got up and close with the crag, it was revealed to him that the crag was actually a doorway into Gallifrey, his home planet, which was supposedly destroyed in the Time War. But in the 50th anniversary special, all 13 Doctors at the time traveled back to the Time War and saved the planet from being destroyed by locking it in a pocket universe somewhere that they couldn't find, which eventually ended up being on the other side of the crack on the wall in Trenzalore. They broadcasted the question, Doctor Who, into the entire universe. Around the same time, they created a truth field all around the planet, and especially localized to the city of the town of Christmas. And the truth field basically made sure that no one inside the field can tell a lie.
Wow.
So they were compelled to say a lie, to say the truth, and makes them refuse to answer. So by asking the question Doctor Who to the Doctor himself, and the Time Lords knew that if the Doctor answers with the correct answer, that being his name, they knew it was safe to come back and rematerialize Gallifrey in the proper universe. However, because the broadcast has already attracted so many of the other species, most of which were severely damaged during the Time War, a lot of these creatures were very reluctant to prevent the Time Lords from ever reaching the planet, which also was the reason why Silence were so determined to stop the Doctor from ever reaching Trenzalore and answering the question.
Wow.
Some of the species that were sent to Trenzalore were including, but not limited to, and this is going to be the toughest thing that I'm going to do on this show today, the Weeping Angels.
Oh.
Hold on. This is the part where I really wish I had these in order. The Sontarans, the Pteroleptals. Hold on, where are they? The Slitheen. We talked about them last week, I believe.
Yeah.
The Silurians. Oops. No. The Jadoom. We also talked about them last week.
Yeah.
Hold on. Really wish I'd done this in order now. The Ice Warriors. The Crinoids.
Oh my gosh.
The Nesting Consciousness. The Autons. The Shakri. The Crotons. The Monoids. And even the Mara.
Wow.
But, of course, none were more terrifying and intimidating than the Daleks. I don't think anyone in the show could them. Everyone knows who the Daleks are at this point. Now, this is where things get a little timey-wimey because it sort of splits into two separate timelines. In the original timeline, the Doctor did indeed say his name out loud, which led to the Time Lords entering back, and all these different species and more that I just mentioned engaged in a brand new Time War, which left the planet a destroyed and desolate husk, very similar to Malachor 5, Malachor 4. Malachor from the Knights of the Old Republic and also Season 2 of Rebels.
Yes.
On Trenzalore itself, after the battle, the Doctor's TARDIS essentially became his tomb. Its connection to the Doctor severed, causing its dimensions to its exterior dimensions to grow to the full size of the interior dimensions.
Oh wow!
The Doctor's body was essentially placed inside, once inside, one of the Doctor's major villains, the Great Intelligence, then managed to penetrate the entrance to the tomb and infiltrate the Doctor's entire timeline, turning every one of his victories into defeats. But of course, he was eventually stalked by the impossible girl, Clara Oswald. Now, in the alternative timeline, the Doctor refused to answer the question and instead stayed on Trenzalore, sending Clara away for her own safety, and decided to defend the town of Christmas from all the invading forces, essentially staying there, fighting off every single villain he's ever had to defeat for 900 years,
Oh gosh.
severely aging in the process, and fully believing that this is the last time he could do any of it because he was on his last body. For those of you who don't know, Time Lords obviously can regenerate and bring themselves back to life, but there's a limit of 13 lives for each Time Lord. So the 11th Doctor, let's not get into the numbering thing, because that's a whole thing I also need to explain. But the 11th Doctor realized that his current body was his final one, that he couldn't possibly regenerate again until the Clara Oswald intervened again and compelled the Time Lords to give him back a brand new regeneration cycle. At this point, it's not exactly clear if they gave him a new regeneration cycle, another cycle of 13 lives, or if they gave him back the original power of regeneration that they originally stole for him back in the end of the dark times of the universe. For further information, see my previous episode from last week. Because again, it's one of those, I'm not going to re-explain it again.
Yeah.
He used the burst of energy from his brand new regeneration cycle to completely obliterate the remaining Dalek fleet above Trenzalore, essentially freeing the planet from its siege, ending the siege of Trenzalore after 900 years, and regenerating into his 12th incarnation, which plays the heavy role in the next planet we'll be talking about. But first, Marie Wilson, any questions? Anything to add?
Yeah. So Lasats and their home planet, which was shielded by, like, I mean, in that case, it was maybe a mixture of magics and technology, but
Star Wars is famous for.
do what?
Which Star Wars is famous for.
Yes, it's very true. Very true. So when, like, Zeb used gosh, it's been so long since I've seen it. When
The rod that he uses as a weapon.
Yeah, his bow rifle.
Yeah.
So he used it. He, like, unlocked, the pathway to get to the original home planet of the Lasats. So it was kind of like in that kind of pocket universe
Yes, as soon
situation.
as you mentioned Lasats, I was like, oh yeah, that's a genius comparison. And I love that at the epilogue of Rebels, where Zev goes with Callus to the planet of the Lasat. I love the redemption of Callus.
Me
in that
too. Me too.
One of
Yeah,
the better written characters in that show, which is saying a lot because there's a
Yeah.
lot of really good characters in that show.
there really are.
The siege element is pretty interesting because are there any instances you can recall of a siege in Star Wars? A siege over an entire planet?
I mean, there's so many, I feel like. There's the, Naboo and the Trade Federation. There's Exegol and the entire, like, galaxy. There's Scarif in Rogue One. There's there's lots of different ones in the books, but definitely, I think I'm trying to. There's something that's, like, on the edge of my brain, but I can't pick it.
I'm gonna.
But it
I'm gonna
mostly reminds me of, and I know it's, like, in the opposite way. Like, instead of in the Doctor Who, episode where you have at least I'm assuming I'm understanding this correctly, that you have all those different entities in those spaceships and they want to attack, and there's nothing really that the people did, right?
No, the people helped the Doctor. They joined forces with him.
Oh, join forces with the Doctor. And so I
Because
gotcha.
he was protecting them for so long, they felt compelled to help him. They felt like
Yeah.
he was our savior. Why shouldn't we help him? There were some
Right.
people who were against that idea, saying that the reason that their planet is constantly being bombarded and attacked is because he's there. But most of them were on the side of, no, he helps us, he protects us. Let's all join forces and help him.
Yeah. I think it would be very opposite, but I feel like Exegol and the wide variety of people that showed up to assault Exegol is most visually similar.
Yeah,
At
it
least.
does. It does, with all the different varieties of ships.
Yeah.
Like you see here, we see there's some Dalek ships over here. There's some Jadoon ships, Cybermen ships, Atraxes, Silurians, all kinds of species. So
It also kind of reminds me of in the High Republic, the attack on Valo, the Republic Fair, I think. I feel like I'm missing a word. But the big Republic Fair that they were having on Valo, and then you had the Nile come in and just wholesale attack like everything.
I really need to get back into the High Republic books because I think I mentioned this last time. I only listened to the first one with the big crisis, the asteroid and all the Jedi coming together to help. That's the one I did listen to. So I need to get back on that horse. I wanted to say the name of the horse-like creatures from Rise of Skywalker, but I forgot their name. So I apologize.
Orbax.
Orback. Yeah, I got to get back on that Orback. Next planet? Or is there anything else you want to add? Okay, so Doctor Who fans, get your tissues ready because we're going back to Beryllium. Oh boy. So, planet Beryllium. Location, a bit complicated. Near Gamma Eridani and near the Andromeda Galaxy. Main attraction, the Singing Towers. So I have no idea what the hell is that supposed to mean near the Andromeda Galaxy. I think it's mentioned that it's in a galaxy close to the Andromeda Galaxy, but it doesn't reveal the name of the galaxy it's located in. Yeah, that's. I said earlier, Stephen Moffat, one of the best Doctor Who writers of all time, didn't do a really good job with his species lore building and planet world building. Not at least not as well as Russell T Davies did, and a lot of the other writers that just took other planets and added new elements to them. And yeah, a lot of this is a problem that a lot of Stephen Moffat planets suffer from. But yeah, sadly, no images of it from orbit, even though it does appear in the show. But for some reason, there's no images of it in the Google Images. But yeah, so Beryllium had a mostly rocky surface and a breathable atmosphere. It had several rings and a large number of non-spherical moons. It was located, like I said, in a galaxy near Andromeda. It had a cave system with a crystal layer located near two giant monoliths. And when the wind blew through the caves by the stone monoliths, it would create a sound similar to singing, which is what earned them the nickname the Singing Towers. The planet was very sparsely populated with only one species of birds known to exist. But once again, no classification of what type of birds they were. There was a flock of them that could be seen hanging around the Singing Towers at one point in the episode. But because of the planet's slow rotation, a night on Beryllium lasted for 24 years.
Whoa.
Yeah. So this planet really just only shows up for 5 minutes in one episode, but there's a lot of really important significance to it. After the crash of the Harmony and Redemption, which is a ship of really questionable people, the worst of the worst of in the universe. I think it's mentioned at one point that the entry fee is the minimum necessity for entry is genocide or something like that. Like, yeah, the worst people in the universe can gain a ticket to that ship, which is it's a good thing that ship crashed eventually. But yeah, the Harmony and Redemption crash landed on the surface of the planet. The following morning, a man named Alphonse was given. He was tasked with salvaging the remains of the ship, trying to find survivors. And the 12th Doctor gave him the Halcyon Drovar, a diamond recently extracted from the head of King Hydroflex. And I mean that in the literal sense. It was literally launched inside his head. But yeah, there was a huge reward on for the return of the Halcyon Drovar. So the Doctor basically gave it to this guy, Alphonse, and instructed him to build a massive restaurant on the crash site of the Harmony and Redemption in full view of the towers. Then the Doctor basically got back into his ship and just traveled forward a few years until the restaurant was fully constructed, made reservations for a table on the balcony overlooking the towers, which the only available reservations were in 4 years' time. And then he just traveled 4 years into the future to claim for his reservation. After a time machine. Now, very famously in the Doctor Who universe, this is the site where the Doctor and his wife Riversong had their final night together, which is where the Doctor gave her the sonic screwdriver and instructed her to go to her final, essentially her final resting place. So this character Riversong, showrunner Stephen Moffat based that character on the time traveler's wife. If you're familiar with that, with the novel, basically the first episode you see her in is technically the episode where she dies, and all the other episodes you see her in take place before that, and she keeps meeting the Doctor and other characters completely out of order, making her easily one of the most confusing characters in all pop culture, with a timeline that would baffle anyone. But through all the time that her and the Doctor met each other, at least past his 10th incarnation in any case, he always knew her final moments. He always knew how she was going to die and where, and he just kept his silence until his 12th incarnation instructed her to go meet his previous self. And we'll get to that later in this episode. But because of the slow rotation, their final night together lasted for 24 years, which gave them plenty of time to say their goodbyes. And yeah. Any singing towers in Star Wars?
Not that I can think of, but the whole kind of rocky caverns, that sort of aesthetic is totally Jeddah.
Yeah. And I think coloration-wise, very, very similar in the soil and the stone types.
Right.
I love the Jeddah comparison. I also love that there's the huge statue of a Jedi holding a lightsaber that was broken and it's toppled over.
Yeah.
In the ruins of Jeddah. Very nice. And I also love that in the comics they went back to Jeddah after it was destroyed and then it became a very harsh environment that they needed these gas masks to breathe, and that was really something I really really appreciated from the planet. Visually,
That
go ahead.
that arc of the Star Wars comic, like, oh my god. I'm pretty sure I cried a couple times because I was just so excited about it.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry for bringing it up. I'm sorry for bringing it up. But yeah, visually, it really reminded me of Planet Earth from Adventure Time, because
mm.
in Adventure Time lore there was a massive nuclear war, World War III essentially, which was then titled the Mushroom Wars because of the mushroom cloud from nuclear weapons. And basically, a whole chunk of the Earth was missing, almost like someone took Planet Earth and took a bite out of it, like biting an apple. And that's really where the majority of the show is set, inside the massive chasm that looks like a bite.
Oh.
Yeah, Adventure Time, highly recommend.
I've seen a few episodes, but not a whole bunch.
It can be a little hard to get into, especially the first season. Oh my goodness! But season 2 onwards, it gets much more mature and clever. And what I love that it did, and sad to say, Doctor Who doesn't do that as much, is that they're not afraid to throw strange, obscure things at the viewer, and then later, several episodes later, they explain why those certain things happened the way they did. And once they do explain it, you just go back and you're like, what? Oh my goodness, that was genius. That was a brilliant move on their part. So yeah, that's something that I wish more shows would do, especially Doctor Who.
I agree. I really like it when they have like crazy connections where you're like, I have no idea how this could be important, and then you're just like,
Yeah, it's
great.
mind-boggling. Okay, so should we continue on this tissue fest to the next planet, or is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I think there is one planet. Can't remember the name of the planet. It's in the High Republic comics, and it has kind of spires like that.
Shaped like these?
Kind of like that, yeah, but they may be taller and skinnier, but it's kind of similar.
They kind of remind me of Greek columns. And maybe it's because I studied art in high school, and so I studied a lot about Greek art. But that's really what does it to me. So no planets with incredibly slow rotations in Star Wars.
Yeah, well, in oh gosh, it was one of the Battlefront books, the second one. Inferno Squad. In Inferno Squad, they were on a planet that I guess it was locked, like maybe tidally locked, because half the planet was dark and half the planet was light, and in the middle was the Twilight Zone, which is the only area that like any people could live.
Because one side was too hot and the other was too cold because of the
something like that. Yeah,
that sounds so. I mean, that's opposite end of the spectrum, but it kind of sounds like in Pitch Black. One side always dark, one side always light. Except in that episode, in that movie, it was like the sun rotates around the planet really, really fast. So you never seen Pitch Black?
I may have. I feel like I have, but I don't remember.
Yeah, so basically, it was too close to the sun. So basically, it was impossible to live when the sun was shining on your side of the planet. That's why people always had to live underground. But there's a sequence where Vin Diesel and company have to get from one side of the planet to the other, and the only way they could do that is on the surface. You have to keep running away from the sun, and they keep having to find these crevices to hide in while the sun passes by and essentially burns the entire area around them and just moves on. And then they keep running. It's not the best movies, but really cool sequence. Okay,
Interesting.
next one. I was no joke. I was literally crying when I wrote some of this.
No.
The library. So big it doesn't need a name. Just a great big the. Planet. The library. Founders. The Lux Foundation. Inhabitants. Humans. The Vashtanarada. And Charlotte Abigail Lux. More on her in a bit. So yeah, in the 50th century, the Lux Foundation founder and CEO Feldman Lux, his youngest daughter, Charlotte, was gravely ill with no chance of recovery. So in an effort to keep her alive and at least make her life a bit more bearable, he uploaded her brain into a computer and built inside the core of the planet that we're talking about right now. The core itself of the planet was an index computer, biggest hard drive ever built. And he basically put his daughter's brain inside of it for all eternity. And the rest of the planet itself basically became a huge planet-spanning city, similar to Coruscant, except it was nothing but bookshelves and bookcases filled with literally every single book ever written up until that point, and every new book that came out since was then added to the shelves of the planet. So you basically had entire continents of fantasy, horror, science fiction, biography, any other genre you can think of. And you had entire cities or streets dedicated to authors like William Shakespeare, Charles Dickens, J.K. Rowling, H.G. Wells, etc., etc. So yeah, basically the entire city is dedicated to authors. The entire planet just basically became a massive library. Now, visitors to the planet were greeted by information nodes, which were candle-shaped drones with a human face that greeted all the visitors and gave them useful information regarding. Hold on, I have it in my notes here. Provided visitors with helpful information, guidance, and notification, as well as conveying different messages to them, left to them through communications, because it's a library, so gotta turn your phones off. Also, the library was populated by wooden security cameras with LED screens for message deliveries, and the entire planet was open to the general public, with the express concern that they keep the story about the daughter of the founder being the main index computer a secret. That's why they gave they give the computer the name Cal, which was an acronym for Charlotte Abigail Lux, which there she is, connected to the mainframe. Now, here's some of the interesting and relative story comes into play. Several years after the planet became fully operational, the planet became under siege by the Vashtanarada. Basically, the Vashtanarada are tiny microscopic predators that spawn from trees and exist on every civilized populated planet, including planet Earth. They mainly feed off roadkill, but basically they mainly live in dark areas, and when they swarm in big clusters together, they can achieve the appearance of shadows, which is the primary cause of people going into dark places in the middle of the night, like forests, not coming back out because they're eaten by the Vashtanarada. They are also known as the piranhas of the air. They can strip your entire flesh off your bones, leaving them completely bare in 1 second flat. There's even a scene where the Doctor literally throws a chicken leg into a shadow where Vashti and Narada happen to live, and then just 1 minute it's a full chicken leg, and then the next second it's a bare bone with not a single shred of meat on it. Now, at one point, the Vashti and Narada spawn, like I said, from trees. And what is a giant library planet mainly populated with? Books.
Yes.
And what are books made of?
Trees.
Yep. So, they spawn. One of their hatching cycles coincided with one of the planet cycles, and they spawned from the trees, populated the entire planet, and sensing danger, the computer, Cal, decided that the best course of action was an emergency teleport, teleporting all people, all visitors to the library off planet, but it couldn't really find a safe place to take them because it could only teleport them inside the planet itself, and it couldn't find a safe place for them because the Vashti and Narada were literally everywhere.
Oh.
So instead of teleporting 4,022 people into a place populated with Vashti and Narada, instead it basically just saved them all onto the hard drive itself, keeping them in a sort of fantasy world state where they believed they were living their lives day after day. And he sort of, Ben Rayner from the channel calls it a WandaVision type world. Also the planet itself has what's known as a Doctor Moon, which is basically a complicated subroutine that was made there to look after the index computer itself, debugging it as a sort of a complicated antivirus that was the size and shape of a moon, which is why it was called Dr. Moon, and it was also maintaining the 4,022 people in the library itself. About 100 years later, in the middle of the 51st century, River Song, you mentioned her earlier, was tasked with an archaeological expedition to go back to the planet and try and uncover the secret of what happened there. She used her methods of communication to alert the Doctor to come to the planet, which essentially led to their first meeting together from his point of view, and their last meeting together from her point of view. And after her entire crew got picked off one by one by the Vashti and Narada, the Doctor finally discovered the entire conspiracy that was going on, and decided that the best course of action was to upload himself onto the computer to act as a sort of extra memory space, so to allow the computer to bring all the people back from the index computer and get them off the planet, while also negotiating in his own way with the Vashti and Narada to leave them alone, to leave all those humans alone, to not eat them for at least one day, to allow them all the opportunity to escape, which they eventually did. However, River Song gave her own life to prevent the Doctor from doing this, because she knew that if he died there, then he's never going to meet her in his own personal future, and that would essentially rewrite all of their wonderful times together. So the only option she had available was to sacrifice herself so that he can live and then eventually meet her in his own personal future. And like I said, I was in tears writing this. It's because when that first happened in 2008, it was like, okay, it's a big emotional moment, but I know literally nothing about this character. This is a completely brand new character, was just introduced, and then later, as more seasons went on, and this character kept coming back and back and back, and then they brought her back in comics and novels and audio episodes. She's got a very successful audio series that I believe is currently on its 10th or 11th season, where she's meeting all the Doctors, the classic ones. So there's so much context to this character now that every time I rewatch that scene, and that scene on Beryllium where they spend their final night together, it's impossible not to cry. So it's another genius storytelling move by Stephen Moffat. But yeah, that's all I can say about the library. Anything to add?
That is incredibly unique, I feel like. The whole situation. And the only thing that really comes to mind is the Matrix. Like that's the only thing that really, because it is such a unique concept. I'm trying to think of like anything microscopic.
That eats people.
Yeah. No.
And while you're thinking about it, Doctor Who also has its own version of the Matrix called the Time Lord Matrix on Gallifrey. Basically, when a Time Lord dies, reaches his or her final regeneration cycle, all of their memories and life experiences are being uploaded to the Matrix, which is the sum of all Time Lord knowledge. Very similar to the testimony thing that I mentioned earlier. It keeps them alive, and it's almost like its own sentient world that very few Time Lords can actually access, but the Doctor has visited there in pseudo-physical form multiple times. And it's really just a land where if you can think it, you can make it, but it takes such a huge strain on your brain that you're better off not going in there at all. So that's the Time Lord Matrix, essentially.
Yeah. Huh. I mean, I can think of different planets with large libraries, but not a planet-wide library. Man, that sounds incredible. I would love to go there if there weren't flesh-eating microscopic creatures.
Yeah, it's one of those. It was a good idea when they started it, but very quickly fell apart for reasons that can't really be blamed on the people involved. Because who knew that the Vashtanarada were going to grow there? And I believe the actual number that was given was scanned by the computers was a million, and the computer just gave up after that. So they could have. So like, how much is a million times a million? I didn't even think. Well, I clearly don't have the brain capacity to make that equation, but yeah, a million, potentially more.
Wow. It's a lot. Yeah, it's just very unique.
Yeah. A lot of these, you find these a lot in Doctor Who where they just make a planet to serve one specific purpose. In this case, a library.
Yeah.
Okay, so next one. We got two more left. Planet Desolation.
Oh, God.
Not a lot of really good images to show, but I did my best. Like I said, Planet Desolation. Location in the 12 Galaxies region. Not really clear on where in the 12 Galaxies region, but somewhere there. Potentially on the very far end of it. Natives, or rather remaining natives, the remnants, remnants, sniper bots, and flesh-eating microbes. So this planet is located in a Trinity star system, basically meaning it has 3 suns, and it also has 3 moons. The planet was once heavily populated with an unknown race who colonized it back in ancient times. These forgotten natives witnessed a mysterious structure that was fading in and out of physical reality, earning it the name the Ghost Monument. Okay, let's save that section for later. Sometime later, the planet was conquered by the Stenza. We talked about them last episode, who forced them to build weapons and poisons for them. The colonizers tried to fight back, knocking the planet out of its potential orbit and leaving it a barren wasteland with a toxic atmosphere and a hostile surface. The planet itself served as the final stage in the Rally of the 12 Galaxies, basically a race taking place all over the 12 Galaxies region, and after which, that's why I wanted to skip it. So the final stage of the race was reaching this supposed ghost monument, which was eventually revealed to be the Doctor's TARDIS.
Oh my gosh.
It was just trapped there for potentially thousands of years after the 12th Doctor regenerated into his 13th incarnation, regenerated inside the TARDIS, and with all that excess regeneration energy, the TARDIS really got heavily damaged and threw the 13th Doctor out, and then just disappeared, landing in this planet in very, very ancient times. Just stayed there for thousands, maybe millions of years, phasing in and out of reality as it struggled to repair itself, both inside and outside, until eventually the 13th Doctor, around the equivalent of 2019 Earth time, the 13th Doctor finally landed on the planet Desolation and claimed her beloved TARDIS once again. After traversing through this planet was mainly populated by the remains of war, and the water was completely undrinkable because it was filled to the brim with flesh-eating microbes inside. Yeah. Now, here's a question that I had while writing this. I'm pretty sure there is a canon short novel where Han Solo enters a race that takes place across several planets. Am I misremembering something?
The Dragon Void Run.
Could be.
The Dragon Void Run. It was in a I can't hold on. It was in a comic, but I can't remember which series. But it is the Dragon Void Run. And let's see. Appearances, if it will go to it. So yes, there is a race. And it takes place sometime after the Battle of Yavin. And it was in... Yeah, that's what I thought. It was a mini series. So it was a mini series called Han Solo.
Cool. And again, could be wrong about this. Actually, I probably am wrong about this, but this was when he met Duquesne for the first time. How wrong was I?
Let's see.
Maybe I'm just thinking about a different thing, but yeah, this is why I stick to Doctor Who.
But yeah, it was really interesting, and like and it turned out that at the end of the race there was something like the woman who won, she was an alien named Rue Liano, I think. And she like went to her homeworld. Like it was this whole other thing than just a race. It was like her grandmother had invented the race, and or great grandmother, something like that. And so she was determined to win it, but it wasn't for her glory. It was for like her people.
Her grandmother's name?
Yeah, there was that, but also the fact that somehow the end of this race led to the grandmother of Lou Rianu was a founding member of the Dragon Void Run. And the whole race is just insane and deadly and dangerous. But the ending, there was something special about the end of the race. And I remember Han, I believe I'm remembering this correctly. Han gave up winning the race so she could win.
Yeah, I think I remember that. I think it's been years since I read that. I think might have been 2016
Mm,
when I read that, but I just love the concept of an interplanetary race taking place
yeah.
over galaxies. There's something similar to that in the classic series in an episode called Enlightenment, where it's literally just a massive boat race with like classical looking boats, not spaceships, actual uh, 18th century boats, just piloted by Eternals and just going from planet to planet, circling planets, all to reach a massive prize at the end.
Oh,
So yeah,
wow.
while us humans are too busy with our problems, we got immortal beings in space boats flying around different planets. It's a really cool concept. Also,
Yeah.
I love that it's got 3 suns and 3 moons, so it sort of
Yeah.
balances out. There's another planet in Doctor Who with 3 moons called San Helios. I was considering putting him on the list, but there really isn't much to talk about there because the whole planet got wiped out. But yeah, happens a lot in Doctor Who. But well, I know Tatooine and several other planets have 2 suns.
Yes.
Gallifrey has 2 suns, the Doctor's home planet. Any other? Is there any planet in Star Wars with 3 moons? I think.
I'm sure there is. Um, because I mean, some planets have like, you know, 55 moons.
Yeah, I mean, in our
So,
own solar system, Jupiter
yeah,
has like 12 moons.
right. So, I feel like probably, but I can't think
Actually,
of one.
I said that and almost. I think I remember. Doesn't Tatooine also have 3 moons? There's like
Hmm.
there's yeah, I remember there was a shot in Book of Boba Fett where you see 3 moons, and then like it was a guy on YouTube who was like, "Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that it had 3 moons." And then after Book of Boba Fett, a couple of weeks ago, I did a full rewatch. I watched all 9 movies, nine Star Wars movies in a day.
What? Is that possible?
Yes, it is. It kicked my ass, but I did it.
Uh,
Look, I once did, well, twice. I did all 8 Harry Potter movies in a day. Again, destroyed me on the inside, but I did it anyway. But yeah, I think in that giant mess of a thing, I think there was a shot in Attack of the Clones when Anakin was on the ambush. He's about to jump the Tusken Raider base, and you see 3 moons. So
I have
yeah.
their names right here. I just found them. Gomrasin, Gurmesa, and Chanini.
And you might, I might be wrong about this, but the 2 suns are Tattoo 1 and Tattoo 2.
Yes.
Yes, I know Star Wars.
Nice.
And also, I think one of the moons of Naboo is an industrial place where a lot of Nabooians go to work. And that was when Captain Panaka was when he was assassinated in the Leia novel, the Leia Princess of Alderaan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. When he recognized that Leia was Padme's daughter,
Yeah,
that
it
was
was.
insane.
That was like, oh shit, he knows. Of course he knows. Of course he knows. And how are they gonna get past that? Boom, he's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
I
was
don't think Leia realizes how much she dodged a bullet in that moment.
yeah. For real.
Okay. Final planet, finally. And well, since we talked about the species last time you were on this show, might as well talk about it again. Raxacoricofallapatorius.
Nice.
This is the only image possible to find for this planet. Okay, stats. Hoping he doesn't kill me. Again, planet Raxacoricofallapatorius. Location. This gets really complicated. It says on the wiki it's in the Mater's Spiral and the Isop Galaxy. Now, this is where things get complicated because the Mater's Spiral is like Time Lord terminology for the Milky Way galaxy.
Oh.
Apparently, only humans call this galaxy the Milky Way. As far as the rest of the universe is concerned, it's called the Mater's Spiral. And the Isop Galaxy is a different galaxy altogether, which is where these guys hail from. Do you remember these?
Yeah.
My big miss from the planet, from the species championship, when I lost my it still haunts me, and I rewatched that episode recently, and I still love that episode. It's one of my favorites, but I cannot look at these guys the same way ever again. It's okay. So we got Raxacoricofallapatorians. Natives. Oh boy, Raxacoricofallapatorians.
Oh gosh.
Where is it? Baradescalium Fatraxius beasts. Nailed it.
Nice.
What they look like. Popito trees. Bartleboigle trees. And rackweed.
Mm.
Oh boy, this planet did not make things easier for me. So, yeah, as a leading world of the Raxus Alliance, its treasures were held in the Raxian vaults. The Alliance also included its twin planet Clom, as well as Clix and Raxacoricofallapatorius. The planet has a purple atmosphere which can be seen from space, even though I saw none of that in this image. So I don't know what the hell they're smoking. But yeah, as well as this is the part that really broke me. A vinegar sea. There's a vinegar sea on this planet, and as we discussed last week, these guys are allergic to vinegar. So there's literally a sea on their planet that can kill them.
Oh.
In addition to the vinegar sea, they also have an ice flow, chalky hills, a tall tree forest. Forgot the T there, and 2 swimmable oceans where the Raxacoricofallapatorians sometimes go to swim in. Rackweed is an especially resilient plant that can grow in any type of environment with little to no maintenance. It can spread very quickly, covering entire cities in just a matter of hours, using airborne spores that come out of a flower that blooms from its main bud after it spends some time in the sunlight. The spores could be fatal if inhaled.
Yikes.
But the entire plant will shrivel and die if it's exposed to high frequency sounds. And also the plant itself is considered a delicacy on several parts of Raxacoricofallapatorius. And this is something very interesting. Bartleboigle trees are used to discipline young Raxacoricofallapatorian children by spanking them on the backside. And I literally had to rewatch an episode to figure out how to properly pronounce this thing. Bartleboigle tree. So, yeah, at least finally we get to talk about the plant life on a planet. So
yeah,
that's interesting.
it is.
What's this called? Popito tree. I think one of them was seen in a book cover in a novel, but wasn't much added to that plant. But yeah, there was a big 2-part episode where all of London was almost consumed by an infestation of the ragweed, which was essentially given as a gift, but as things usually tend to do whenever Slitheen and Slitheen Blathering are concerned, it was all a trick. So yeah, that's a very interesting planet. I just wish they added more information to it.
Yeah.
People seem to like it, and they do try to evolve a lot of other elements from it. Like I think in the current Titan Comics run, they introduced the Raxacoricofallapatorius, which looks like the Raxacoricofallapatorius, except grayish purple with spikes on their head. The natives of Clum were given the name Absorbaloffs. Be thankful I didn't upload a picture of that because it's just a giant creature that absorbs people into it by touching them, and so its body is covered with faces. The Calixians look completely different somehow. So yeah, lots of interesting potential there. Just gotta wait and see if they develop that whole solar system a bit more. So it's an interesting system of 4 planets with different things. But
well, plant infestation, although you didn't say that the ragweed it doesn't attack anything, right?
Not intentionally. Last week, with the previous show, I talked about another plant that just spray fungal-like spores whenever it senses someone near, and the spores just sort of grow inside the person's body until it completely paralyzes them and overcomes them. But the spores themselves, they're just floating around trying to find new places to grow. And like I said, they can grow almost everywhere. And if one would accidentally happen to inhale them, like what happened to a certain character in the spin-off show, The Sarah Jane Adventures, they just they have these over time they have these unsightly rashes, visible what's the word I'm looking? Pox. These visible pox on their skin. In addition to rising body temperature and difficulty to breathe.
Yikes. Well, a plant infestation that was more sentient and dangerous is the Dringir from the High Republic. So when they take over a planet, they kind of just infiltrate like every crevice and area and just kind of completely take over. Like they did in the Amaxine Station and in Into the Dark. I think that's what it was called. Yeah. And then like they took over Now Hutta for a while and were just like they were everywhere. So that reminded me of that for sure. Although the Dringir are sentient and they kill people.
So are they still around by the time we see Nalhata in the Clone Wars? Or
no, they're gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good for the Hata, I suppose.
The Dringir don't last that long. They're definitely a red herring in the storytelling.
Cool.
So
something similar to that in Classic Who, the Crinoids, which I mentioned earlier.
That thing is so creepy.
It gets creepier, believe me. So, and also, fun fact, they actually repurposed repurposed that suit. It was originally fully red in another story, and they saw potential in it for this new story, so they just spray painted it green and reused it as another villain. It's one of those Doctor Who stories that like they were so under budgeted, so they had to find these creative ways to make their stories work. But
Yeah.
so the crinoids, they don't necessarily have a home planet. They basically travel all through space inside these tiny seed pods. We talked about them a couple of weeks ago in an episode, and sadly I deleted all the images I had of them. But they travel in these little seed pods that just land on any given planet that just happens to be in their way. And the first time they come into contact with anyone, they infect him, sort of almost like a snake bite. And then the vegetation starts to grow inside and outside of the person's body, and it just just mutates over time, eventually taking over the person's body, which is what you see here.
Oh.
Then eventually, over time, they evolve into much larger, more amorphous creatures that don't necessarily resemble anything humanoid like in the picture that I just showed.
Yeah.
They just continue to grow, and they just feast on flesh. As the doctor puts it, on most civilized planets, uh, um, the the animals eat the plant life. Whenever there's a crinoid on the scene, the vegetation eat the animal.
Oh my goodness.
One of them in that episode grows to like a massive size that's bigger than like a mansion. Like this huge British castle almost devours it completely. So
Ugh. Well, there's Skier, the Trandoshan Jedi in the High Republic, who gets infected with the Dringir, and his arm, before he's infected, his arm gets cut off, and he doesn't put a prosthetic on because Trandoshans regenerate their limbs. So he didn't have anything, and when the Dringir infected him, there are images of him with a branch as an arm, like a scary branch that can grow and chase you, and like it was insane.
there's another Adventure Time reference. At one point, Finn, the main character, finds this sword made of a grass blade. It's a cursed sword that just attaches itself to his wrist, meaning he can draw out the sword whenever he wants to fight. It can cut through anything, but it's permanently attached to his arm, to his wrist. And then eventually, over several different episodes, the sword becomes sentient, tries to take over his life, and basically creates a doppelganger made entirely of grass called Fern. Eventually, they reconcile and they become friends, but for a very long time, it was one of the major villains. He eventually loses his arm as a result of the sword, and then he gets a small tiny drop of this healing liquid that just grows a flower on it. So for several episodes, he runs around with, instead of having an arm, he has a flower till he meets this bee queen that just does bee stuff to the flower and just gives him a new arm. Like,
That's funny.
It's some weird combination of goofy and genius. That show. But yeah, bringing it back to Doctor Who, in the novel Tales from Trenzalore, one of the there's like 4 stories there. One of them specifically deals with crinoids. One of them infected one of the humans who live in the Outlands, people who were shunned by the people on Christmas for speaking out against the Doctor. The Doctor didn't really tell anyone to. Didn't really banish him. Just the people of Christmas didn't want to be around him, so he took his daughter and they just went and lived on a farmhouse on the outskirts. And occasionally he traded with the village of Christmas. He's the one in the story that gets infected by the crinoid, and the Doctor and another character that I can't remember at the moment try their best to try and save him, but unfortunately, once you've been infected by a crinoid, there's very little that can be done about that. But eventually, he comes to his senses right at the end and sacrifices himself to prevent anyone else from being infected, and ensuring that he will be the last Cranoid on Trenzalore, and then he gives off a piece of himself fashioned into wood as a walking cane for the Doctor, because at some point the Doctor, because he spent hundreds and hundreds of years on Trenzalore, he almost loses the ability to walk, and eventually he's forced to walk with a walking cane, which was part of the episode. There really wasn't much to it in the episode itself, but the novel fleshed out and just gave purpose to that walking cane that was in the episode. And I love it when novels in these types of universes do that. Like, even though the character ended up being a major dud in the movies, the Captain Phasma's armor made from the same metals as Palpatine's ship.
Yep.
That I felt was really cool. Like,
Yes.
little hints like Bazine Natal. They gave her her own novel. Didn't do much in Force Awakens, but the novel was really good. So
I loved that novel. I thought it was fascinating. I loved that there was the apey something, the bees, the giant bees, that were attacking in that novella.
Is it the first one or the second one? Because for Bazine Natal, because I think there is another one for Bazine.
I'm thinking of it was a novella, so it was shorter.
Oh, no, you're right. You're right. It's come back to me. Yes, I remember them now. Yeah, was the one where the mission was to find one of the last remaining clone troopers from the Clone Wars. This really aged, barely alive clone trooper that was somehow survived through the
and they went in this like retirement home that was overtaken by these bee creatures.
Yeah,
that was such a crazy concept, and it was wonderful.
Yep. And you know what else? That is a story for another time.
Yes.
Which is my outro for this episode, I think. Unless you have something else to add.
The only thing I want to add is that there is a Raxus in Star Wars. And Raxus was the capital for the Confederacy of Independent Systems.
Really?
Yes.
I thought, well, shows what I know. I thought Sereno was the capital.
I don't think so.
Oh, no, wait. No. What's that episode where Padme and Ahsoka go and find Nina Bonteri and Lux Bonteri? And then there's this big... the Confederacy of Independent Systems version of the Senate.
Yes.
There's a massive hologram of Duke who speaks. So that's Raxus?
I believe so. I'm double checking, but I believe so. It says affiliation, Galactic Republic, Confederacy of Independent Systems, and Galactic Empire. Also, Raxus Secundus is the name, but it's simply known as Raxus. Yeah. The Separatist Senate was headquartered within its capital city of Raxalon. Raxus became home to a number of Confederate senators, including Mina Bonteri of Onderon.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's nice.
It's spelled different.
Yeah, and also in Doctor Who, there's a planet and a race called Rhodia. It's spelled like Rhodians and Rhodia, but it's pronounced Rhodia.
Interesting.
These things happen sometimes. Sometimes sometimes it's coincidence. Sometimes it's obvious. Like there's an episode from the '60s, mainly takes place on a planet called Vulcan. Not Vulcan from Star Trek, obviously. Just a completely different planet called Vulcan.
That's funny.
But now I can say that is a story for another time. because that's something that we might actually talk about on this show because it's Doctor Who related. So this was fun. Were you having fun?
Yeah. I had a great time.
Yeah, we actually somehow I started this by saying that there's less to talk about these planets because last week we had planets, 2 in particular, that could have just taken an entire episode and we still wouldn't scratch the surface of them. But I suppose that's what happens when you have 6 planets instead of 4. So yeah, we talked for almost 2 hours. That's longer than last week's episode. I don't think they realized how big of a mistake it was to give me permission to talk about Doctor Who on the channel because I can just go off. Like I have no filter when it got to this stuff. And obviously, I'm assuming you were Star Wars, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And that makes all the difference because we enjoy talking about the stuff we love and that we're passionate about. So
Very
if
true.
people want to hear more about Star Wars from an expert such as yourself, where can they find you?
They can find me on Twitter at Alia Morgaine. I have a Star Wars review blog that is on hiatus currently, but I have over 600 reviews. The Star Wars Review.blogspot.com. And then, of course, my queer Star Wars YouTube channel, Afra's Artifacts, which took a month off in August because my life is crazy. And it just came back with a new episode earlier this week. And I'm so excited to be back with that. And then, of course, let's talk about Star Wars, which happens 2 times a month randomly.
So we really have to look for them.
Yes. He promotes them. They get promoted, but it's just our schedules, just got to make it work.
2 people with crazy schedules somehow doing a Star Wars related show.
Yeah.
But that's part of the fun of it. And also, while you're there, check out the rest of Taco's channel, Something to Talk About. As for this channel in particular, you can find me on this show every Monday, provided, of course, Soda remembers to upload the episode. And also every Sunday. By the time you're watching this, we wouldn't have had an episode this Saturday for the Northern Countdown because it didn't fit well for all 3 of us. But my 2 co-hosts on that show, Soda and Ben, have another show called Rewind the Tape on this channel. Soda has another show on this channel called The Squared Slice. There's another show on this channel called Have You Seen This? With the guest from the previous week, Snark and Dave, who sometimes does the Northern Rankings whenever his schedule allows it. Soda has his own show on the Left Canadian Network called The Blokes of Wrestling. Ben has his own YouTube channel called The Multiverse of Geekdom. Our good friend Jess the Kiwi has her own YouTube channel called Kiwi Jess, where she descends into madness. And I have my own YouTube channel called 50 Shades of Geek. Haven't really been active a lot. I did a couple of trailer reactions for Pokemon trailers that were released recently. And very, very soon, I'm going to start uploading some Doctor Who related content on my channel. So stay tuned for that. I believe that's all the plugs. So no one really asked me to, but I just do the plugs for everyone on this channel for some reason. No idea why, I just do. That's it for this week. I have been me. You have been the marvelous Marie Wilson. And we will see you all some other time to talk about more Doctor Who planets. Alonzi!